She was freezing, alone, and fading fast, and no one even knew she was out there. But what saved her life that night wasn't human. Would you believe it came on 4 legs and with a heartbeat of its own? It was the kind of cold that stung your lungs when you breathed too deep. The kind of cold that creeps in slow, silent and invisible, until your bones start to feel hollow and your fingers forget what warmth ever felt like. The streets were nearly empty that afternoon. Just patches of frozen sidewalk, the occasional gust rattling brittle tree branches, and snow falling in lazy, uneven clumps from a dull gray sky. Most people had already tucked themselves inside, curtains drawn, heaters humming, soup simmering on the stove. But not Evelyn. She was 82. Lived alone in a modest, 2-bedroom house at the edge of town. Her husband, Walter, had passed 5 winters ago, quietly, in his sleep. Since then, the days had felt longer, and the house much, much quieter. She didn't complain. Evelyn wasn't the type. She still made her bed every morning. Still wrote her grocery lists on yellow notepads. Still left a lamp on in the hallway, just in case Walter ever found his way back home. People in town knew her. Sort of. She was the sweet older lady with the red scarf, who always smiled even when her eyes looked a little tired. The one who brought cookies to the library staff every Christmas, even if no one remembered her name the rest of the year. That day, she stepped outside just before sunset. Just a short walk, she told herself. Only 2 blocks to the corner store and back. She'd forgotten to pick up milk. No gloves. Just her wool coat, a thick scarf, and an old pair of snow boots that still had Walter's initials faded inside. The streets were unusually quiet. No kids playing. No cars passing. Just the soft crunch of snow beneath her boots and the occasional flicker of streetlight overhead. The sun dipped lower, bleeding orange behind the rows of houses. The cold sharpened. Biting. Ruthless. She pulled her coat tighter. Halfway there, she paused. Something in her leg, maybe her hip, twinged sharp. She winced. Took a deep breath. Kept walking. Nobody saw her pass the intersection. Nobody noticed the moment she slipped. It happened fast. A patch of black ice. A twisted step. A sudden cry. Then silence. She landed behind an old iron bench outside an abandoned hardware store. Just far enough off the main road to be missed. She tried to sit up. Her hands trembled. Her breath came out in fast, cloudy gasps. Pain shot down her side. She looked around, no one. No headlights. No footsteps. Nothing but the snow and the sky and the biting wind. She tried to reach into her coat pocket for her phone. Empty. She'd left it on the charger by her bed. Her voice cracked as she called out, once, twice, but the wind carried it off like it didn't matter. She closed her eyes for a second. Just a second. That's when the cold began to change. It was no longer just outside her body, it was inside her. Crawling up her spine. Numbing her thoughts. Making everything feel distant. Soft. Like a dream slowly fading. She wanted to move, but her limbs were too heavy. Her thoughts began to blur. She thought of Walter. Their porch swing. The sound of his laugh echoing down the hallway. She thought of how lonely the house had felt lately. And how no one would even know she was missing until the mail piled up. Her scarf loosened in the wind. Snow started to collect on her shoulders. And somewhere, in the growing dark, a low buzzing sound hummed in the distance. A faulty street lamp flickering. It blinked once, twice, then went black. She was gone from sight. No one saw her fall. No one knew she was there. No family to call. No neighbors walking by. No one. Just a frail hand peeking out from a coat sleeve, barely moving. Just the snow. Just the silence. But something was watching. Something with eyes low to the ground. Eyes that had seen this street before. Eyes that had learned which doorways offered warmth, and which ones shut too fast. It had fermented by the winter. Whiskers twitching. A limp in its step. A stray. But not just any stray. Not yet. And what happened next was beyond anyone's imagination. The wind shrieked now, not just a whisper, but a banshee's wail, tearing down the alleyway like it had something to prove. The snow came harder. Heavier. Fast and sharp, like tiny needles slicing through the air. Evelyn barely noticed anymore. Her breath had slowed. Not by choice, just exhaustion. Her chest rose in shallow, uneven lifts, like she was struggling to remember how to breathe at all. Her lips had turned pale. The tips of her fingers, poking out from her coat sleeve, were stiff and ghost blue. Her mind drifted in and out like waves washing up on a cold, empty shore. She wasn't dreaming, but nothing felt real anymore. She tried to move her arm, just a little, but it felt like lifting stone. Her shoulder burned. Her leg throbbed. Her body was starting to shut down. She blinked up at the gray sky, flakes melting on her eyelashes. No cars. No voices. No warmth. Just her heartbeat, slowing, soft, distant. But something else was there. Watching. It moved like a shadow, silent, low, careful. Just beyond the fence, beneath a rusted mailbox, two golden eyes peered out. Sharp. Focused. Alert. A cat. Thin. Wiry. Scarred from street fights and close calls. Its ribs were visible beneath matted fur. One ear had a tear clean through the middle. But its eyes. Those eyes were fierce. Not wild, wise. Like it had seen too much to be afraid of anything anymore. It hadn't meant to end up here. It was hunting, maybe. Or just wandering like it always did. Looking for warmth. A crust of bread. A soft place to curl up for the night. But something stopped it. It sensed something off. Something still. Something wrong. It sniffed the air. Took a step forward. Paused. Another gust of wind blew through, and with it came the faintest sound. Not quite a cry. More like a whimper, fading. The cat's ears twitched. It waited. Listened. Then moved again. One paw at a time. Slow. Deliberate. Its pads made no sound against the snow, but it left behind the tiniest trail of prints, barely visible, disappearing as fast as they formed. Evelyn didn't see it. She couldn't. Her eyes were half-lidded now, her vision blurred like frosted glass. She thought she saw something move, a flicker, maybe. A shape against the snow. But she couldn't trust her senses anymore. Her teeth chattered softly, then stopped. That was worse. When the shivering stopped, that's when the real danger began. Still, the cat crept closer. 5 feet. 3. 2. It crouched low behind the bench, tail flicking once, then still. The woman lay there, barely a breath left. And yet, her scarf moved just enough in the wind to catch the cat's attention. A thread of red, swaying like a signal flag in the whiteout. The cat sniffed the air again. Then made its move. It climbed. Awkwardly. Hesitantly. It didn't leap into her coat right away. It pressed its paw against her shoulder, testing. No reaction. She didn't flinch. Didn't stir. The cat tilted its head. Something flickered in those yellow eyes, something between instinct and recognition. It nudged her chest. No growl. No hiss. Just a small, slow shift, and then it began to crawl. Right into the space between her arm and her coat. Curling up. Small body pressed against her ribs. Its warmth, meager but real, radiated like a flicker of flame in a dark cave. And still, no one came. Time passed, but Evelyn didn't know how much. The only sound now was the wind, softer than before, brushing across the nearby trees. The cat didn't move. It stayed tucked against her like it had made a decision. Like it understood. as if it knew, on some unexplainable level, that she needed that heat more than it ever had. It curled tighter, buried its head under her scarf. Its breath shallow, but steady. Her hand, fingers stiff and barely responsive, twitched. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt something. A pulse of warmth. A faint pressure. A presence. She didn't open her eyes. But her lips parted slightly, as if to whisper, "Thank you." Or maybe just, "Stay." The storm wasn't over. The night hadn't passed. And no help had arrived. But something had shifted. A tiny, living spark had pressed itself into the hollow between her ribs. Not enough to save her, yet. But just enough to hold her here a little longer. And the strangest part? She had no idea it was a cat. Not yet. She only knew something had come. And it hadn't left. The night deepened and the storm showed no mercy. Snowflakes, sharp as tiny daggers, sliced through the air, accumulating in heavy drifts that buried the world in silence. Streetlights flickered, their glow muted by the relentless snowfall, casting eerie shadows that danced across the deserted sidewalk. Evelyn's breaths were shallow now, each one a laborious effort. Her body, once racked with shivers, had surrendered to a dangerous numbness. The cold was no longer an external force, it had seeped into her very bones, threatening to extinguish the fragile ember of life that flickered within her. Nestled against her chest, the stray cat remained vigilant. Its thin frame pressed firmly against her, offering every ounce of warmth it possessed. The feline's ears twitched, attuned to the muffled sounds of the night, ever watchful for a sign, a hope that help might come. In the distance, the faint crunch of boots against snow broke the monotony of the storm's howl. A figure emerged, hooded and hunched against the biting wind. Alex, a teenager returning home later than intended, navigated the treacherous path with care. His face was flushed from the cold, and his breath formed fleeting clouds that dissipated into the night. As he approached the park, a peculiar sound reached his ears, a soft, persistent meowing, barely audible over the wind's lament. He paused, straining to locate the source. There, behind the bench, an unusual mound caught his eye, partially obscured by the accumulating snow. Curiosity piqued, Alex stepped closer. The sight that met him was both startling and heartrending. A woman, elderly and frail, lay motionless, her face pale against the stark white. Atop her, a black cat, its eyes gleaming with determination, voiced its distress, calling out into the void. "Ma'am? Are you okay?" Alex's voice wavered as he crouched beside her, his gloved hand gently shaking her shoulder. No response. Panic surged within him, but he forced it down, focusing on the immediate need. He fumbled for his phone, fingers clumsy from the cold, and dialed emergency services. The operator's voice was a lifeline, grounding him as he relayed the situation, his words tumbling out in urgency. "There's an elderly woman here, unconscious. She's freezing. Please, hurry." The cat's meows grew louder, as if urging swiftness, understanding the gravity of the moment. Alex shrugged off his jacket, draping it over Evelyn in a futile attempt to stave off the cold's relentless grip. Minutes felt like hours, each second stretching into eternity. The distant wail of sirens finally pierced the night, growing louder, closer, a beacon of hope slicing through the despair. Paramedics arrived in a flurry of motion, their practiced efficiency a stark contrast to Alex's frantic worry. They assessed Evelyn swiftly, noting the dangerously low body temperature, the weak pulse, a life teetering on the precipice. As they prepared to lift her onto the stretcher, the cat hissed, a protective barrier between them and the woman it had sworn to shield. One paramedic, recognizing the feline's distress, spoke soothingly, extending a hand in peace. "It's okay, buddy. We're here to help." The cat's eyes darted between the strangers and Evelyn, weighing trust against instinct. Finally, it stepped aside, but not far, never far. Evelyn was bundled into the ambulance, the doors sealing her within a cocoon of warmth and care. Alex stood back, his heart pounding, relief mingling with residual fear. The cat, however, was not content to remain behind. It leaped onto the ambulance's step, peering inside, its gaze fixed on the woman it had saved. A paramedic smiled, nodding. "Let it come. It's earned that much." Inside, amidst the hum of medical equipment and the soft murmurs of the attending staff, the cat curled beside Evelyn once more. Its purring resonated through the confined space, a rhythmic lullaby, a promise that she was not alone. As the ambulance sped through the snow-laden streets, Alex watched its taillights fade into the distance. He stood there, the storm swirling around him, a profound sense of awe settling over his heart. In the vast, indifferent expanse of the cold night, a stray cat's unwavering devotion had bridged the chasm between life and death. And in that moment, the world seemed a little warmer, a little brighter, illuminated by the quiet heroism of a humble feline. The ambulance sped through the snow-laden streets, its siren a piercing wail against the night's oppressive silence. Inside, paramedics worked feverishly over Evelyn, their faces etched with concern. Her pulse was faint, her skin pallid, a life hanging by a thread. The stray cat, its matted fur still damp from the snow, remained curled beside her, its green eyes reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights. Its rhythmic purring filled the confined space, a steady hum amidst the chaos. At the hospital, a team awaited, urgency propelling their movements. Evelyn was whisked away, leaving the cat momentarily behind. It sat at the entrance, tail wrapped around its paws, watching intently as the doors swung shut behind the gurney. Nurses exchanged glances, some with bemused smiles, acknowledging the feline guardian's presence. Hours passed, each minute stretching into an eternity. The storm outside raged on, wind howling against the windows, echoing the turmoil within. Finally, a doctor emerged, his expression a blend of relief and astonishment. Approaching the waiting area, he addressed the gathered staff and the few concerned bystanders. "She's stable now," he began, voice tinged with wonder. "Another hour out there, and she might not have made it." Murmurs rippled through the small crowd, a collective exhale of tension. The doctor continued, his gaze drifting toward the entrance where the cat still sat, a silent sentinel. Her core temperature was dangerously low. But here's the remarkable part. He paused, as if grappling with the improbability of his own words. The warmth of that cat likely kept her core temperature just high enough to avoid death. Eyes widened, disbelief mingling with awe. The cat, oblivious to the stir it had caused, began to groom itself, pink tongue darting out to clean its paws. One of the nurses chuckled softly. "Looks like we owe our thanks to a feline hero." The doctor nodded, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Indeed. But here's the part no one can explain." He glanced back toward the entrance, prompting others to follow his gaze. The spot where the cat had been was now empty. Concerned, a few staff members stepped outside, scanning the snow-covered grounds. They searched the immediate area, calling out softly, their voices swallowed by the night. "No cat. Nowhere. Gone." It was as if it had come only for her. Stayed just long enough. Then disappeared into the night. Silence enveloped them, the weight of the moment settling deep. The storm had begun to abate, snowflakes drifting lazily from the heavens, blanketing the world in a pristine shroud. One of the nurses wrapped her arms around herself, more for comfort than warmth. "Sometimes," she murmured, "fate sends a savior you'd never expect." The words hung in the air, a poignant truth none could deny. Inside, Evelyn stirred, her eyes fluttering open to the soft glow of the hospital room. Memories blurred, she recalled the piercing cold, the encroaching darkness, and then warmth. A gentle, purring warmth that had nestled against her, a lifeline in the abyss. Tears welled as she whispered into the stillness, "Thank you." Beyond the hospital walls, the city lay hushed under its snowy blanket. Somewhere, in the labyrinth of alleys and streets, a stray cat padded silently, its mission complete. No accolades awaited, no recognition sought. Just the quiet satisfaction of a life saved, a destiny altered. And in that profound simplicity lay the essence of true heroism. In the days following her harrowing ordeal, Evelyn sat by her window, a warm cup of tea cradled in her hands. The winter landscape stretched before her, pristine and silent. Yet, her eyes were drawn to the spot where she had collapsed, where fate had intervened in the form of a stray cat. Every evening, as dusk painted the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Evelyn placed a small bowl of food and a soft blanket on her porch. Hope flickered in her heart that her feline savior might return. Neighbors often saw her on the porch, whispering into the cold air, sharing stories, expressing gratitude. "He saved my life," she would say, her voice thick with emotion. "I hope he's still out there. I hope he knows." The community, moved by Evelyn's experience, began to see the stray cats in their midst through a different lens. No longer just shadows in alleyways, they became symbols of unexpected heroism, of the mysteries that life often holds. Some believe it was just a cat. Others think it was something more. Guardian? Angel? A miracle wrapped in fur? What do you think? Was it instinct, or something divine? If you believe animals can sense more than we understand, share this story. And tell us, would you call that cat a hero?